everybody, it is me, Sally, back on the old Cupcake Jemma channel. It's been a while since I've done a Thursday video. It's very fun to be back here. Sam and I have been working on our little mindful baking videos, which we've been posting on a Friday before the weekend to kind of calm down and celebrate the kind of joy of baking, going back to basics. So if that feels like something you want to get involved with, then head over to our mindful baking playlist. But today, it's going to be mindful, but with a bit more energy perhaps. And today I'm going to be making a sheet cake. It's going to be a big, beautiful sheet cake filled with lots of summery flavors. We're going to do strawberry ganache, lots of elderflower and mint. It's the kind of cake that you can switch up flavors really easily, but I just thought it's such a great cake to kind of serve at a party or a picnic or something, because obviously we love a big old celebration cake like these gorgeous ones behind me here, but they're quite a lot of work and maybe it's a bit daunting, and they're also quite annoying to serve sometimes, like round cakes. So I'm going to do a sheet cake, nice big slab of cake filled with loads of yummy flavors. And we've got a lot to make. I'm going to start with some sponges. We're going to make a little glaze to go on our sponges. We're going to make some ganache, some buttercream, and then we're going to bring it all together. So first things first, we need to get our tins prepared. So I'm using two 9 by 13 inch cake tins. I'm going to line these starting with some release cake spray, and I'm just going to spray the sides and the bottom of the cake tins, and then I'm going to line them with some greaseproof paper. Okay, so tins are ready so that we're not faffing around later when our batter is made, which we're going to get on with now. So first things we need to do is get our butter nice and soft. So this I actually put in the microwave just for a few seconds just to make sure it's spreadable but it's not sloppy. And I've got 620 grams of unsalted butter, and that's going to go into my mixer along with 620 grams of caster sugar. And I'm going to get this whipping on a medium speed for at least 4 to 5 minutes. What we're looking for is it to get really pale in colour and aerated. This is so important that we don't rush this. So I like to have something to do whilst that's happening. So I'm going to get on and crack 10 eggs. So let's just take a little look at this batter so far. So it's so white in colour and it will have volumized quite a lot. You probably can't tell that on camera, but this is so important because this is creating the air in our cake. So you really don't want to rush this, and just make sure that it gets super white like this. Okay, so now let's start adding our eggs. Because I've got 10 eggs, I'm not going to add them one at a time. I'm going to add them like 2 at a time, but we'll see because they're quite broken in there. Nothing to do with my cracking. So I'm going to keep the mixer on a low speed just as I add in the first couple, and then I'll gradually bring it back up to a medium speed and just keep it mixing until it's just incorporated and it's come together as one smooth batter. Lovely, so it really doesn't take very long, and then I'm going to do the same thing as I'm dropping it down, adding the eggs and turning it back up. So I'm going to keep doing that until all of my eggs are combined. And once the eggs are all in there, it's time to add the flour, but before I do that, I'm just going to give this a little stop and scrape, particularly as it's quite a lot of batter. As you can see, when I scoop around the sides, there's a lot of mixture at the bottom and on the sides that hasn't kind of mixed in with the eggs yet. So really important that every now and again we just give this a little scrape down before adding our flour. So through a sieve, I'm going to add 610 grams of self-raising flour, and then we're going to put that on the mixer and just mix it on the lowest speed until it's just combined. And then lastly, we're just going to add a little bit of whole milk. So we're going to add 5 tablespoons. So I'm just going to pour that in here along with a little bit of vanilla extract, good quality stuff. You can get this from cupcakejemma.com. It's delicious. We use it in bakeries here, well worth it. So I'm going to pop in just about a teaspoon of this. I'm doing it by eye. I like vanilla. And again, we're just going to pop this on to the lowest speed and again mix it until it's just combined. So now I'm just gonna take it off the mixer. I'm gonna give it a final stir with a spatula just again to make sure that we've incorporated all the bits of flour from around the sides and bottom of the bowl. And I'm gonna divide it into my 2 tins, flatten them out with a palette knife, and then they're gonna go straight into our preheated oven at 165 degrees for 25 minutes until a skewer comes out of the center of your sheet cakes perfectly clean. So whilst the cakes are in the oven, we're gonna get on with making all our lovely fillings. And we're gonna start with the strawberry ganache, which is gonna be the center filling for our cake. This is just basically like a white chocolate ganache, but we're gonna swap out the cream for some fruit puree. So the first thing I've got is 400 grams of white chocolate. I've got chocolate chips, but you can just use a bar that you've chopped up. And into that, we're gonna add some strawberry puree. You can make this yourself by whizzing up some fresh strawberries and then sieving it until it is completely smooth. We're also gonna add in 25 grams of unsalted butter. This is gonna give our ganache a lovely bitey texture. And then lastly, 30 grams of glucose syrup, and this is gonna prevent the ganache from splitting. We're gonna heat this over a gentle bain-marie, stirring the whole time until it's completely smooth and everything's melted together. And then pour it into a tin, and we're gonna leave it to set and cool down at room temperature. Before it sets and cools down, I'm just putting a little bit of cling film directly on top of the ganache just to stop it from getting any kind of skin. And it's really important to try and set this at room temperature if you can, rather than putting it in the fridge, because we want it to be nice and smooth and one consistency. The fridge is gonna chill it down too quickly. The outsides are gonna get hard whilst the middle stays soft. So if you've got time, just leave it at room temp. Whilst I've got the hob out, I'm gonna stick with it, and we're gonna make a simple sugar syrup that we're going to drench our baked sponges in. You wanna use equal quantities of sugar and water. So for this, I've got half a cup of caster sugar and half a cup of water. And into it, I'm gonna add 2 tablespoons of Elderflower Cordial and a good handful of fresh mint. I'm gonna bring that up to the boil, and then we're gonna drop it down to a simmer, and we're gonna stir it until the sugar has completely dissolved. Once the sugar's dissolved, we'll just take it off the heat, but leave that mint in there, infusing the syrup, and we'll let it cool down. Cakes are out of the oven, smelling absolutely beautiful in here. We've got the smell of the cakes baked, we've got the smell of the beautiful mint and elderflower syrup, and we've got our ganache cooling down here. The last thing we're gonna do is just make a little bit of buttercream to ice the outside of our sheet cake with, and we're gonna use a standard classic American buttercream for this, and just add a little bit of elderflower to it at the end. So in here I've got 375 grams of soft butter, again, super soft, so that we can whip it up. So popping that into my mixer, and then we're going to get that mixing on a nice medium speed, again for a good 4 or 5 minutes. Might take a little bit longer. Remember, we're looking for it to be pale in color and to be really voluminous, and that's going to give us a beautiful light buttercream to chomp into. So let's just check that we're happy with this, and I am so happy with that. Look, really pale. It's incorporated loads of there, which is why it's gone that color, and it's at least doubled in size, which is exactly what we want. So now we're gonna start adding some icing sugar. I've got 600 grams here, which I've already sifted. Really important to sift icing sugar because it can be really clumpy. We're gonna add it in 2 stages. So I'm gonna add about half of it. So just chucking it all in here. We're adding it in 2 stages so that we don't completely collapse all the air that we just created from whipping. Before I put this on my mixer, because icing sugar, it goes everywhere, I'm just gonna bring it together by hand, just very gently. It doesn't need to be completely mixed through. It just means that when we put it back on the mixer, it's not just gonna go everywhere. Right, so it's just looking like this, and then we're gonna pop that back on the mixer. And again, start on a low speed, just so that it doesn't go everywhere. And then increase the speed back to that medium, and then we're going to keep it whipping just to reintroduce the air and get it lovely and fluffy again. And once that's had a couple of minutes re-whipping, we're going to do the exact same thing with the remaining icing sugar, putting it in, mixing it in by hand, and then re-whipping it on a nice medium speed. And once all of the icing sugar is in, it's looking lovely and fluffy, but it feels a bit stiff and the mix is struggling a bit. So we're gonna start adding some liquid. And I'm gonna use Elderflower Cordial for this because it will go with our kind of summery theme. And I'm gonna start by just pouring in on a low speed, about 1 to 2 tablespoons. I don't wanna put too much in to begin with because we don't wanna make it go too sloppy. So let's whip that up for a minute and then we'll test the consistency. Let's take a little look. It's looking fluffy. So we're gonna take our spatula and give it a good stir and try and imagine what it's gonna feel like to ice a cake, which is easy for me because I've iced many cakes, but something that you'll get used to. Basically, we want it to be nice and spreadable, but not stiff. We don't want to have to put too much kind of power behind it. It's always better to leave your icing slightly on the stiffer side when you make it, because we can always add a bit more liquid later just before we ice it. If it's too sloppy, we end up having to add more icing sugar, then it becomes too sweet. So I'm just going to scrape all of this off the paddle and then we're going to cover it because this particular icing dries out really quickly and it gets kind of crispy on top. So cover it with cling film and then we just need to wait for our cakes to cool down. Alrighty, let's get decorating. So cakes have cooled down. I did put them in the fridge just to take the heat off them a little so that we can ice them straight away. And now I need to level them down using our leveler, but they're quite hard to move because they're quite large, okay? So I'm gonna cut them in half, and this is totally fine to do this. Yes, I'm gonna cut it in half. So I've got a big knife and I mean, it's not even gonna be exactly in half. I'm just gonna chop, chop, chop. And then I've just got a lifter here, but even if you don't have one of these, you'll find it way easier to pick up now that it's in 2 pieces. So I'm just gonna slide this off. Ooh, ooh yeah. That looks good, eh? And I'm just gonna pop it onto a piece of greaseproof paper and do the same with this. And I'll do the same with my second piece. So I'm gonna chop it in half, move it onto the paper, and then I'm gonna use my leveler just to trim the very, very top of this off. I don't wanna make it very thin, I just wanna expose the crumb. All right, so I've got a nice big board here that I'm going to ice my cake onto. I'm just going to take a little bit of the buttercream just to stick our sponge on with. So just doesn't need to be neat, just a little wiggle, just to stick it down. That'll do. Remember to keep the buttercream covered. And now we're going to pick up our sponges, and because we've cut them in half, this is going to be so much easier again. So sliding my lifter underneath. And then putting it on, hopefully in the middle. And then we'll pick up the second piece and just put it right up against it so you can't see the join. So first up is our minty elderflower sugar syrup, which smells so good, and I did just put my finger in it and taste it, and it tastes delicious. So I'm gonna use a pastry brush, and I'm just gonna dab it all across this layer of cake. It's just going to give a really nice kind of punchy, minty, elderflowery flavour. Okay, so just leave that to one side and we'll grab the strawberry ganache. And it's going to be nice and soft but spreadable still. So I'm just going to dollop this all over my cake and spread it out. Right, so I'm not actually putting all of it on. I've got a little bit left in my tin here because I want to use this on top of the cake just for a little bit of decoration. So let's just put that over there. And I've tried to not let this spill over the sides of the cake because we are going to be icing this with a different icing and it's going to be white. So I am really trying to sort of keep this inside the lines. You can always kind of wipe it up a little if it does spill over. And now we're going to cover this whole thing with some fresh strawberries because I think it's delicious to put fresh fruit in the middle of a cake. It's so summery. It's going to give you texture. It's going to give you zingy sort of freshness. And so I literally am going to do an entire layer of strawberries. Okay, I'm going to stop there. I could fill all these tiny holes, but apparently this is enough strawberries. So let's just get the second layer of cake on top. So same thing again, using my cake lifter to pick up half of it, and I want to kind of line it up with the bottom piece as much as possible. Give it a squish down so that it does sort of compress the filling, and then we'll do the same with the second half. Pop it on top and give it a good squish. Okay, so nice and squished down, and I'm just going to pop some more of that delicious elderflower mint syrup on this top layer. Once you're happy with the amount of syrup on, we'll say goodbye to that and bring in our buttercream. So we'll get a spatula and just want to check that it's feeling not too stiff. And I'm actually going to say this does feel the tinsiest bit stiff. So I have got my elderflower here, and I'm just going to pop a little blob of it in and mix it through. It's really important that before you start icing your cake, you're happy with the consistency, because if it's too stiff, it's just going to want to tear up those crumbs. Now, it doesn't feel like I'm having to fight the buttercream too much. Now, just to kind of help me ice this, I am going to use a piping bag to get the icing on, because it is kind of cleaner, we get less crumbs involved, but you don't have to do this. You can just kind of bung it all on, that is totally fine. And then we're just going to pipe it all on, so just wiggling it around. New cake design, what do you guys think? Kidding, I'm going to smooth it out, but I'm just going to put the rest of this across the top. Again, just putting it on with a piping bag is just going to really help spread it out. But I have run out, so what am I talking about? Let's just dollop the rest of this on in a few blobs across the cake. And then we'll grab our palette knife and we'll start spreading it around so that we can't see any cake. So whenever I'm icing a cake, I always spread the top icing out first so that it spills over the edge and it protects this kind of corner, because that can be quite fragile. So now that I've done that, I'm just going to take my palette knife and shovel the icing forwards and backwards around the sides, pushing it all the way to the corners so that it again covers the corner and protects it. And then we'll move on to the next side. So I'm leaving the kind of look of this quite rustic. I'm not trying to make it look super duper smooth. It's kind of not the point of this cake. So I'm just going to take my palette knife and I'm just going to do a few sort of wiggles. You can always do it one way, turn it around and wiggle it back the other way if you want. So I'm just going to leave the cake here and I'm going to tidy up the board using a scraper just so it looks neat, and then we'll get to decorating. All right, so decorating time, just adding a few flowers and fresh fruit to the top of this cake. But what I like to do, just to make sure that no one's taking more cake than somebody else, is I'm going to micromanage the cake serving. And I'm gonna score some lines in it. It's kind of cute, I like this, but of course it's completely up to you. If you do wanna do it, grab yourself a nice sharp knife and we're just gonna score the portions in the top first. Give it a little wipe in between each one so it still stays nice and neat. All right, so cake is all scored, and now we're just gonna decorate it. So first up, I've got the leftover ganache in a piping bag, and I've got a little teaspoon measure here, but you can use anything, any implement. And I'm just gonna make a few little divots, I guess, in the cake, just so that it has, the ganache has something to sit in and it's not just gonna fall off. All right, so let's just cut the end of the piping bag. Under here are some scissors, here they are. So just gonna cut a little bit off this time. And we're gonna fill each of those holes. So just squeeze it in, let it fill up, and then whip it away. if you've got anything left, put it in your mouth, put it on your toast. And now I'm going to go in with some mint leaves and also these really beautiful little flowers that I actually cut from my garden this morning. If you're gonna put flowers on your cake, please make sure they are not poisonous flowers. If they're edible, hurrah. If they're not edible, just make sure people know to take them off before they eat them, but as long as they're not poisonous, guys. So I'm just gonna snip them at their little heads and just place them on. A couple of mint leaves as well, and it's gonna look so dainty and beautiful. And now I've got some strawberries, I've got some whole strawberries and a few slices as well. And I'm just gonna dot these over the cake, and it's just looking so summery, really natural. I just love this kind of cake. It just looks like you just wanna dig in and dive straight on in, which we're gonna do. And lastly, just because I found them in the cupboard, some freeze-dried strawberries, which you can actually buy in supermarkets here in the UK. I'm just gonna put a few little sprinkles of these on as well, just because you get a real variation of color and size. I love this cake. I know that here at Crumbs and Doilies, we make like absolute masterpieces. I say we, I don't do it. The amazing bakers downstairs in the bakery do all of that. But I think there's something really pleasing about this. It looks so natural and yummy, and you're getting a sense of the flavors that are in there as well. And it was really simple, not a lot of faff, perfect for a party or a picnic, or for Sam, Nikki and I to eat right now. So I'm going to, seeing as I've already marked it out, I know exactly where to cut. So let's cut this little corner piece out here. Right, look at that, that looks beautiful. Look at all that filling. That is gorgeous. Lovely, beautiful crumb on that sponge as well. Let's do this. I'm gonna dig right down. Oh, that's a big one. Okay, here goes. Light and fluffy and fruity, and you do really get that mint, particularly that mint hitting us from that syrup in there. Perfect for summer parties and picnics and barbecues and fun evenings at home. And you can fill it with anything. You could do any type of cake sponge, you could do any type of filling, any type of icing, put whatever you like on it. It's just beautiful. I love that. Absolutely gorgeous. Yum, yum, yum. If you do make one, please let us know how you get on. Tag us as usual over on Instagram. We've got hashtag Cupcake Jemma, hashtag Crumbs and Doilies. Make sure you follow us on both those accounts as well. We're always posting what's going on. If you're in the area and you want to come and visit us at Crumbs and Doilies Soho, pick up a sweet treat, then please do. And of course, remember to join our bake club if you want to get the downloadable PDF recipes every week from every video that we upload. There's also bonus content on there as well. So patreon.com/Cupcake Jemma. If you want to come to one of my baking classes and meet me, I love meeting you. It is the highlight of my week when I get to meet you guys here in the Cupcake Jemma studio, teach you all about baking and decorating, and have a really beautiful day together. Head to bakingclasses.co.uk. Honestly, gotta know my website. We'll be back with another recipe video for you here on the channel really soon. Make sure you've subscribed so that you don't miss anything. Words have gone to pieces. I can't talk when there's this beautiful cake in front of me. So over and out.